A young man named Fades once lived in the village of Rauskov. It was a quiet place at the edge of a deep, ancient forest. The villagers there still practiced old rites and believed in the presence of woodland spirits. The Domovik, who guarded hearths and fields, the Rusalka, who lurked by the river, and others that children learned about in whispered stories. One of those tales spoke of a hidden orchard behind the forest's thickest briars, a place where fruit never rotted and leaves never fell. Fades' grandmother would warn him, "Never wander past the 3 pine trees in the northern grove. That path leads to misfortune." Her words ignited his imagination. He heard from others in the village that those who ventured too far and found this secret orchard sometimes never came back. A few, it was rumored, returned with strange transformations. They did not age, but in their eyes lay a bleak emptiness, as though their spirits had withered. Fady and his friends were at first excited by the idea of immortality, but the older villagers, those who had seen too much, trembled when they recounted the orchard's curse. Years passed. Fady's grandmother, who had raised him after his parents died of a winter illness, fell gravely ill as well. The local herb women tried potions of moss and thyme, but nothing eased her coughing. Desperate, Fady weighed the rumors. Could the orchard be real? Did it truly grant life without end, and if so, might its power heal his grandmother? At last he decided to seek the orchard himself. He knew it might be a fool's errand, but better to try than to watch the only family he had waste away. He left at dawn, warming his hands by the trembling fire before stepping into the cool morning breeze. Dawn's pale sunlight glimmered off the dew, lending every blade of grass a faint glow. Fady walked north, past the 3 pine trees, following no marked trail, only the half-remembered recollections of wild stories. Each step forward heightened an eerie silence, as though the forest held its breath. 2 days later, with supplies waning, he found evidence of something unnatural. A line of oak trees whose trunks looked half petrified, leaves stiff under his gentle touch. They created a corridor that led into a thicket of bramble. Twisted vines blocked passage, as if grown by some deliberate hand. Fades drew a small knife and began hacking through. The bramble gave way slowly, but with every cut, he felt a strange disquiet, like a warning from the forest itself. When at last he poked his head through, he beheld a clearing drowned in silver haze. An orchard, sprawling yet silent, spread out before him. Its trees were heavy with scarlet apples, unnaturally plump. Thousands of them hung from branches that never seemed to sway. The grass beneath was a pale green, spattered with clusters of black mushrooms, and the air carried a cold sweetness that made Fady's skin tingle. The path he trod turned chalk white underfoot, giving the place a spectral glow. Near the middle of this orchard rose a decrepit wooden gazebo, its paint peeling in long flakes. Fady approached warily, scanning the silent orchard for signs of life. Chilling breeze rustled the boughs above, or perhaps that was just his imagination. When he reached the gazebo, he found a single occupant. An old man in a grey cloak, stooped first to the right, then to the left, as though in some silent debate with his own shadow. The man held his thin arms close to his chest, eyes sunken with a weariness that went beyond physical age. Startled, Fady halted. He wondered if this was a caretaker or a lonely hermit who had made this orchard his home. The old man turned slowly to face Fady, revealing eyes the colour of distant storm clouds. "You must be lost, young traveller," he rasped with a voice that scarcely rose above the hush of the orchard. "No one comes here unless they have no other choice, or don't believe in the warnings." Fady swallowed the dryness in his throat. "I've come to find a cure," he said. "My grandmother is gravely ill, and only this orchard's secrets can save her." The old man closed his eyes, letting the hush linger in the air. "You know of the orchard's power? The price it demands?" "I've only heard rumors," answered Fady. "That it grants immortality to those who eat its fruit. What do they pay in return?" The old man smiled faintly, a gesture that was neither comforting nor kind. "They lose hope. They live so long they forget when they were once happy. The orchard's fruit fills you with endless years, but robs you of the will to do anything meaningful with them. Fady felt a chill grip his heart. Still, was the rumor truly so dire? Perhaps there was some safeguard, some manner in which immortality could be shared without losing yourself. "If I can take an apple home," he said, "and use it to cure her, would it not work? She would live, and I would remain as I am." The old man let out a brittle laugh. "Take the apple if you wish, but once you possess it, the orchard's curse will anchor itself in your soul. You cannot carry the orchard's fruit without being bound, and if your grandmother partakes, she may regain her health, but she'll lose all joy, all hope. She'll become a vessel alive, but empty." Silence followed these words. The orchard rustled as if in agreement. Fady thought of his grandmother, whose gentle smile used to warm the entire room. Did he want to see her face robbed of that spark of hope? Across the orchard, something stirred. Fady spotted a figure, a woman dressed in tattered white linen, moving robotically among the trunks. She was collecting apples that dropped from the branches without any show of emotion, placing them in a woven basket. She moved slowly, her eyes fixed on some distant point, as though her mind had drifted far away. Fady realized at once that she was one of the orchard's victims, a being who had chosen immortality and was paying a terrible price. "I can't let my grandmother die," Fady whispered, voice trembling. "And yet, to do this would be to condemn her to a living death. Is there no alternative? The orchard is cunning. It draws the despairing, promising them a solution. Nothing is freely given, young one." The old man beckoned Fady closer, his bony hand trembling. "Many centuries ago, this orchard was a place of plenty, maintained by a forest spirit. But a wicked sorcerer discovered its fruit could extend life. He bound the orchard to his dark arts, so now hope is devoured in exchange for endless existence." Fady's thoughts raced. Perhaps the orchard could be cleansed, the curse broken. Rumor sometimes spoke of curses lifted by the pure-hearted. He asked as much, voice quivering with the slightest edge of optimism. But the old man's eyes flickered with sorrow. "I've tried," he said, "and so have many before me. The orchard's power is ancient, and it has become a creature unto itself, feeding on the broken dreams of men and women. Once you are within these walls, your mind is caught in its cold wind. It's almost impossible to leave unchanged." A dark hush descended again. Fady urged himself onward. "But what if no one else has tried in the exact manner I might? Perhaps the orchard's hold can be loosened." The old man nodded, as though he recognized the fire in Fady's heart. "Time can dull even the greatest curses. And occasionally, even in the darkest places, a single spark of hope defies the gloom." That evening, the sun gave no sign of setting. The orchard glowed as if lit from within, unaffected by normal twilight. Fady was uncertain if it was day or night. The air seemed suspended in an eerie calm. Yet fatigue tugged at him, and he slumped against a tree trunk, searching for rest. The old man vanished into the fading light without explanation, and Fady was alone among the orchard's silent, watchful trees. Sleep came fitfully. When he woke, he spotted a single ghost-like figure gliding at the meadow's edge. Determined, he rose and approached. It was the same woman in white linen, the caretaker or gatherer. She maintained the orchard for reasons unknown. Despite her hollow eyes, something in her posture suggested curiosity about this newcomer. As he neared, she stood still, clutching an apple in her hand. "Do you crave this fruit?" she asked, her voice distant. "Is that why you've come?" Fady did not answer immediately. He thought of his grandmother, of the orchard's curse, and of the faint possibility that something could break it. "I doubt it," he finally replied, "but I need it for someone I love." She bowed her head. "That is how it starts for everyone. A love that is dying, a life slipping away. We come, We think we can have it all, save the ones we love without paying the price. But there's always a cost. Her eyes flickered with remorse or memory, as if she was reliving her own arrival. Fady could sense that once she too might have ventured here for a noble or desperate cause. Is there truly no other way to save someone? Or is it that we are doomed to become like you? A faint furrow crossed her brow. I am bound here, but not everyone must be, if they have the will to deny the orchard's illusions. Yet the orchard thrives on desperation. It lures you with the promise of rescue and immortality, but fleeces your hope. Maybe, just maybe, you can leave if your will is stronger. That glimmer of possibility fueled Fady. He decided no matter what happened, he would not consume the orchard's fruit, nor would he deliver it to his grandmother without finding a way to lift the curse. He began a methodical search by daylight, if indeed it was real daylight, for any sign or relic that might give him a clue. He discovered an ancient shrine at the orchard's farthest boundary, near a cluster of towering birch trees. The shrine was carved from stone deeply embedded in the earth, its surface etched with archaic runes reminiscent of the old Slavic scripts he had seen in medieval manuscripts. Moss covered most of them, but with careful brushing, he uncovered symbols depicting a story. A caretaker spirit, a sorcerer bending the spirit to his will, and the orchard turning dark as souls fell under its sway. In a small recessed alcove, he saw a stylized carving of a pine leaf, signifying the protective power of nature. Beneath it, a hollow space hinted that something once resided there, a talisman or amulet. Perhaps it was the orchard's original guardian, a protective charm missing since the sorcerer's corruption. Fady suspected that if he could find it and return it, the orchard's natural state might be restored, freeing its victims from their endless, hopeless existence. He decided to consult the old man, hoping for guidance. As he retraced steps toward the gazebo, the orchard felt more oppressive. Every apple-laden branch seemed to lean inward, as though eavesdropping on his thoughts. A sense of dread built with each footstep. At last he nearly stumbled into the old man, who stood in silence at the path's edge. "What you seek, you may not find," the old man whispered. "But if you do, the orchard's guardians won't let you leave easily." "Guardians?" Fady asked, voice hitching. "The orchard's lost caretaker spirit. Not entirely gone, nor wholly free lies bound here. It can manifest as illusions, or illusions made flesh. It ensures the orchard remains cursed. If you search for the talisman, the orchard's caretaker will test you." Fady felt gooseflesh rise on his arms. "Then help me. You know far more than I." The old man looked away, as though battling something within. "I was once a scholar who stumbled here in pursuit of knowledge. The orchard robbed me of hope, yet not entirely. Some spark remains. You might say I've lingered, waiting for another with a stronger will to do what I could not." He motioned for Fady to follow him. Together, they walked deeper among the orchard's labyrinth of trees, navigating winding paths until they came to a place where the orchard's floor sloped downward like a basin. At the center glowed a single tree whose bark shimmered, iridescent in the orchard's half-light. The apples on its branches were not red, but an almost black purple. Something about it radiated a chilling aura. The old man paused. "This tree is the orchard's heart," he said softly. "Here, the caretaker's spirit once took root. If there's any place to confront the orchard's curse, it is here. But be warned, this is where illusions run strongest." Fady stepped closer, and the orchard's stillness turned into a low hum. It pulsed in his ears like a heartbeat, drawing him closer to that central tree. Suddenly, a figure materialized, a tall, commanding shape draped in black furs, face shrouded by a heavy hood. In one hand, the figure gripped a staff topped with an ebony carving that resembled a twisted bird's skull. "Who dares disturb my threshold?" the figure demanded. Though Fady couldn't see the face, He felt the voice coil around him like a serpent. This, perhaps, was the orchard's caretaker made manifest, or the echo of the long-dead sorcerer's power. Fady steadied himself. "I seek the orchard's lost amulet, the one that once kept this place in balance." A hiss slithered through the clearing. "Why? To break the orchard's power? Do you not wish for immortality?" "I wish for my grandmother to live, but not at the cost of her hope." A wave of energy swept outward from the figure, making the orchard's branches groan and sway. In that tempest, illusions burst into life. Serpents coiled around trunks, enormous ravens perched on limbs, raucously calling. Spectral shapes flickered, each shaped like a person lost to the orchard long ago. Fady felt a terror seep into his bones, a dread that threatened to break his resolve. He closed his eyes, remembering the hands that once mended his clothes, the steady voice that told stories by candlelight. He remembered how his grandmother had lost her children and beloved husband, yet still found warmth to raise him with kindness and love. Her hope had outlasted heartbreak. Summoning that image in his mind jolted him to stand firm. As if sensing his resolve, the figure raised a bony hand, and the illusions converged, swirling around him. One by one, they morphed into faces, his parents, his grandmother, the friends he left behind. They pleaded, urging him forward or back. He saw his grandmother lying in bed, pale with sickness. He saw her beckoning for him, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Will ye not help me?" the illusion said in her voice. "Eat the fruit, my child, save me." Fady's chest burned with guilt and longing. Could he ignore such a plea? Yet he could not allow the orchard to trick him. "These are not real. My grandmother might be dying, but she would never demand I save her by giving up all hope." Pressing onward, he stepped through the swirling illusions. A screech echoed through the orchard as the caretaker figure's illusions faltered. The orchard's hum rose to a shriek, and for a moment Fady felt the ground quiver beneath him. Then the illusions tore open like a veil. He spotted a small object lying exposed at the foot of the central tree, shimmering faintly in the orchard's half-light. It was a small pine-leaf amulet, forged from bronze, with traces of green patina across its surface. He seized it before fear could stop him, trembling as the orchard's caretaker let loose a baleful wail. The orchard burst into frantic chaos. The wind roared, branches flailed, apples pelted the ground. But clinging to the amulet, Fady felt a faint warmth tingling in his palm. It seemed to hold the orchard's original spirit, locked away from the sorcerer's malevolence. Whether that was enough to cleanse the orchard remained to be seen. Gritting his teeth, Fady focused his heart on the orchard's rightful state, a place of nourishment and renewal. He had heard as a child that the Slavic forest spirits, once upon a time, guided travelers and beasts alike, offering them safe passage, so long as respect was maintained. He prayed those spirits still listened, even in this cursed realm. In a moment of pure clarity, he pressed the amulet to the tree's trunk. For an instant, he saw a vision, an orchard brimming with life and colour, free from darkness. Then a ripple surged outward like a wave of starlight. The orchard's caretaker staggered backward, cloak and illusions dissolving into the air. The shrieking wind died. One by one, the orchard's trees fell silent. Fady collapsed, exhausted, and noticed the orchard's gloom was thinning. The ghostly atmosphere shifted, letting a natural haze of dusk settle in. Standing a few paces away was the old man, leaning on his staff, fear and awe mingling on his face. Slowly they both surveyed their surroundings, waiting. Was the orchard truly cleansed? Moments stretched. Then, from the orchard's far ends, a stirring commenced, as if something held in stasis was awakening. Men and women who had wandered these grounds, lost in hopelessness, began to blink and stir with confusion. The caretaker woman in white linen dropped her basket of apples. Tears traced her cheeks as she gazed at her hands as though seeing them for the first time in years. Fady turned to the old man. "Is it done? Are they free?" The old man nodded uncertainly. Something has changed. The orchard no longer hums with that malevolent presence. You've weakened it, perhaps severed its link to the sorcerer's ancient curse. Yet magic runs deep. Without the orchard's caretaker spirit fully returned and nurtured, some vestiges of the curse may linger. But these people, they will at least have a chance to reclaim what they lost. Clutching the amulet, Fady recalled his original mission, saving his grandmother. He felt relief that no one would need to eat the orchard's fruit for immortality, but perhaps this orchard could offer a gentler remedy now that the curse was lifted. Urged by impulse, he sought one of the orchard's still hanging apples. Its once scarlet skin now shone with a gentler hue. As though the fruit itself had been pure, he plucked one gingerly. At once, a sensation of warmth pulsed from the amulet through his hand, reminding him of a maternal embrace. He faced the old man. "Do you think this fruit might now heal without stealing hope?" The old man's face was full of longing and regret. May the spirits be kind for once. If the orchard's rightful power is restored, perhaps it holds healing properties again. But be wary, curses can linger. I cannot say for certain. Fady exhaled, decided. Better to try, for my grandmother has little time. If there's any chance to cure her properly, this is it. The orchard was calmer now, the wind whispering lightly through leaves. The once harsh gloom had softened to an almost ordinary twilight. Slowly, other orchard survivors gathered around him, blinking in the first stirrings of real emotion they had felt in ages. Fady recognized the caretaker woman among them. She looked younger, or rather, more alive. She stepped forward, gaze tracing Fady's face. "Thank you," she whispered. "I remember I came here for my child, who was dying. I thought immortality was the only answer, but it cost me everything." Her voice wavered. "Now, I must return to my village, if it still exists." Her words echoed in Fady's mind. He too desired to reach home. Bidding farewell to the orchard, he tucked the amulet safely in his vest. The orchard, once a place of tempting illusions, had quieted enough to let him pass. Those reclaimed from the curse moved in small groups, supporting one another, uncertain of how much time or reality had elapsed. Some no longer remembered the location of their old villages, but a wary hope flickered in their eyes. At the orchard's edge, where Fady had originally hacked through brambles, the vines parted easily this time, as if cooperating. The old man declined to follow, placing a gnarled hand on Fady's shoulder. "There is work yet to be done here. My mind is cleared enough to guide these lost souls and tend the orchard, now that it is free from darkness. You go save your grandmother." Fady bowed his gratitude, pressed the old man's hand gently, and stepped through the boundary. The forest beyond felt brighter than before. At last, the sun began its proper descent, staining the sky in fiery oranges. A path seemed to guide him back toward Roscoff. Exhausted but determined, he made the journey in fewer days than it had taken before, as though the forest now paved an easier route for his return. When he finally glimpsed the village's chimney smoke rising above the tree line, his heart lifted. He hurried to his grandmother's cottage, knelt by her bedside. Her breath was shallow, eyes barely open. He whispered a gentle greeting, tears burning at the corners of his eyes. She looked at him, her gaze clouded with fever, and tried to speak, but only managed a small sound. Fady carefully reached into his bag, extracting the orchard's apple, which no longer seemed ominous. Its surface glistened with a modest sheen, reminiscent of morning dew. He sliced a small piece, placed it between her lips, and waited, uncertain. At first, nothing happened. Her hand felt cold. Then, so subtle he almost missed it, a spark of color returned to her cheeks. She blinked, coughed softly, and her eyes regained focus. A trembling breath escaped her, this time stronger. The color in her face grew from pallid gray to a faint rosy hue. "Fady," she murmured. "My child, you've come back." Sob overwhelmed him. "Yes, grandmother." I found a way, But the words were lost in relief. He gently helped her sit, letting her sip water. As the hours passed, she improved, showing no sign of despair or emptiness. On the contrary, she clutched Fady's hand, smiling like someone awakened from a nightmare. Outside the cottage, villagers heard rumors that Fady had returned from the forbidden orchard, bearing a miraculous remedy. Some approached hesitantly, perhaps half expecting him to appear as a hollow-eyed immortal. Yet they found him the same as ever, tired, a bit worn from his journey, but eyes bright. When he explained all that happened and produced the amulet, they listened in hushed awe. News spread that the orchard might have been freed from its curse, that hope had triumphed where fear had long reigned. In time, a select few travelled to the orchard under Fady's guidance, though the path was still winding. The oppressive gloom was gone. The orchard resembled a grove in recovery, its fruit radiant, yet no longer sinister. The old man greeted them, sharing knowledge of how to care for the trees without succumbing to any lingering darkness. Over months, and then years, the orchard became less myth and more living legend, a place of healing for those in dire need. Yet caution lingered. None forgot how the orchard had once devoured hope in exchange for immortality. Fady's grandmother recovered fully. Though age would eventually take her, each day was rich with gratitude and the warmth of a loving heart. For Fady, this was enough. He did not covet endless years. Mortal life was precious precisely because it was finite, shaped by joys and losses that wove meaning into existence. He carried the bronze amulet wherever he went, a symbol and reminder that curses can be undone if one's resolve is strong. And if hope is never entirely forsaken, he would sometimes find himself reflecting on the orchard's caretaker, that spectral figure of malevolence or sorrow who might still be out there, in some slither of the orchard's darker corners. Yet with each new bloom, the orchard's natural spirit grew stronger, diminishing those shadows day by day. He hoped that the forest spirits now sang their lullabies across the orchard's canopy, guiding travellers to a place of comfort rather than despair. Back in Roscoff, life continued with the rhythms of each season. Spring plantings, summer festivals, autumn harvests, winter gatherings by the hearth. Fady's grandmother told recountings of the orchard's new life, how it served as a testament that no curse is final. And though some villagers remained wary, a subtle change had come over them. An unmistakable collective sigh of relief, as if a dark weight had lifted from the region. Occasionally, in the night, Fady's dreamt of the orchard. Silver bark, gentle moonlight on the leaves, a breeze carrying the faint scent of blossoms that sparkled like stardust. In these dreams he sensed not emptiness, but abiding hope, the orchard singing with the voices of all it had nourished. He always awoke with an echo of that melody in his mind, like a promise that the orchard, once a trap for desperate souls, had found its way back to a place of healing. In the end, he had discovered a truth both simple and profound. Immortality without hope was a barren fate, for it stripped life of its purpose. Better then to treasure mortal days, brief as they might be, with a heart unclouded by dread. Some prayed only for enough time to mend broken hearts, protect loved ones, and see them flourish. Fady believed such was the orchard's original blessing, before corruption twisted it into a snare. Many years later, as age began to siller his own hair, he would stand at the forest edge and gaze north, remembering the orchard and all it taught him. If ever travellers came to him, in search of ways to cheat death, he would smile gently and tell them the old story. He'd remind them that the orchard gave renewed life, yes, but only when its keeper's hope stood guard against the shadows. And he would tap the small bronze amulet, shaped like a pine leaf, which gleamed softly, never allowing forgetfulness to set in. Even if there was a time when immortality seemed the only solution, Fady's had glimpsed how each day is precious, precisely because it is not endless. To truly live one's days, to bravely face heartbreak and relish joy, formed the real magic that defied curses. And so he carried on, a quiet guardian of the orchard's restored spirit, knowing that immortality was not the answer, but that hope, love, and renewal could right ancient wrongs and bring a gentle dawn even to the darkest orchard.